everybody, to another episode of Agents of MACE. Today, talking Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Before we get into it, though, I wanted to mention that for the holidays, we will not have an episode after this one. So, taking a little break. But follow us on social media, and I'll be sure to post when we're coming back. So, look forward to your holidays with your families, and watch all the Marvel content you can. So that's my little pre-note. But yeah, so let's get into this. I guess first thoughts.
In my opinion, it is the second best Phase 4 movie after Spider-Man No Way Home. And it was such a solid entry. It had, of course, a very emotional story dealing with the loss of T'Challa following the, of course, real-life loss of Chadwick Boseman. And this was such a staggering effort by the filmmakers and by all the actors to move on with this project after dealing with the passing of the star, the central figure. But they pulled it off so well. It enabled us to get Shuri in a bigger role, a more mature role where she's dealing with all of this grief. We also got introduced to Riri Williams, who I really liked her character. She has an energy that is very similar to Peter Parker, and I'm excited to see where she'll pop up next.
Really liked it. Really good way to close out Phase 4. So yeah, I mean that's basically the gist of it. Like, there's some interesting things that happen in this that we'll dive into, and there's some flaws for sure. I think the biggest thing that I've seen is, looking at this as, if you look at this as a direct sequel to Black Panther, is this a better sequel, the same? I think I would still go with Black Panther over this one, just in terms of, I don't know, I just like the story a little bit better in Black Panther. And I just kind of like, I don't know. There's a definite direction going there, even with this one, but it's like, I think, with this, you get a little bit more fan service that could have been left out. And could have focused a little bit more on some of the core story points. And if that would have been done, then this probably would have been a superior sequel.
I agree. I think definitely an exciting way to wrap up the phase. Mm-hmm. I think that it was emotional. And that was the real key takeaway from it. It does seem like one of those, they pick a character and they tell a story specifically about this character. And so everything else is just sort of there as to move the plot forward for this character's story. And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, many movies and shows and books and entertainment over the years do that. But I think if you were to take apart this movie to its core elements, its core element is Shuri dealing with the grief of losing her brother.
Yeah.
And we will do spoilers in a moment, but really that's the
it is core. And it's I think one of the harder things to kind of get away from that, or at least try your best not to compare it to, but there was so much of that where this just basically felt like a clone of No Way Home. Mm-hmm. Both are characters dealing with a very, very similar things, both losing, and just the foundational things of both films are kind of the same. Mm-hmm. And it's how do you view that? I mean, there's no real easy way to kind of get around that. When you lose someone, that's just tough. And, it's those stories are going to be the same, but different. But it's, you look at like the entertainment industry, it's hard to like break away of like, well, are you kind of doing that just based off of their success and you want to kind of get the same success
Right.
but you got to tell it your own way. It's hard to look away from that, but still, like, I think they did a good job with Wakanda Forever.
I think, and that's the hardest part, is that it is so great and it is so powerful, but then the like creative movie making side of me is like, you guys, I don't know, like, it's cool that they introduced Namor. It's fun that we got to see Riri. They definitely are setting up oh dang it, the Dora Milaje show, Midnight, what is it? Midnight Angels. Yeah, they're definitely setting that up. So it's like we're getting all of this really cool stuff, but in the end, I just keep seeing like, oh well, they're only doing this because this could tie into some symbolic thing for Shuri to work through. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I mean, again, like, I think it's really cool, and it's very emotional, like emotionally driven. The whole movie is, but it seems like a weird time to like introduce a relatively large character for the MCU moving forward, and using it as sort of like, I mean, I guess you could say Miss Marvel was our first real like mention of mutants,
right?
But I mean, in this movie, we just get a blatant mention of mutants. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's just like, I really liked it, and it was really cool, and I definitely suggest everyone go see it. But
yeah, again,
it goes back to, it feels like they're setting up a bunch of unrelated things, as opposed to this movie setting up a further future for.
Yeah, and I had conversations with some friends around this, and like, because we talk about this a lot, and you know, when I'm talking about this with someone outside of our core circle, it's really fascinating to pick up, because like, you can see the frustration of like, it's just so much. I've got to watch these shows. I've got to watch these movies. I could be confused on this. Oh, well, clearly they're setting up this other thing, but is it going to be a show? Is it going to be a movie? Like, it's layered now.
yeah. And it's crazy to think, like, before, like, leading up to Endgame, they were doing all the same, like, future setup.
But it was all movies.
But it was,
you knew, everyone knew what to expect. Like, they knew that, like, here in the next like so many months we'll have this, and you get curious to like, how is this going to build onto the story and where it's going, and now it's like, okay, well, is this going to be a series? Like, are they going to show up in movies, only in series? Like, in what capacity is it going to expand upon the core story?
Right. And it's there's so many excuse me, like Midnight Angels, for example. I don't see that series tying directly into the MCU like movies. It may, absolutely. It could follow the whole thing where the Midnight Angels go to fight Doctor Doom, and that could be part of like them leading into introducing Doctor Doom. I don't know. But I just have a feeling that it's not going to tie into the movies. And so it's weird to... I mean, I know there wasn't like a ton of setup for that in this movie, but there was definitely setup for that in this movie. And it feels like time that could have been spent forwarding like Quantumania or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I feel like the only real... even nod that we get to Quantumania is on a ticker tape on the bottom of a news thing where you see Scott Lang is selling his book that we saw in the trailer for Quantumania. So it's like, But that's the next movie.
Right. And there's two ticker moments. One references Scott Lang being on book tour. I can't remember what the second one referenced. It mentioned something, but again, it clearly must have not been that important because the TV was more in the background and everyone's moving quicker, so you only see it for a second, but you get like there's a reference there.
I think it was something with the president. I'm trying to remember because I didn't catch what it said, but I looked it up, and I think it had something to do with the president, and it may have been a nod leading towards Secret Wars.
Interesting. Okay.
Which like that's something else we get a lot of in this, where we get De La Fontaine or whatever. She's finally back, and a lot of mention of like the U.S. and what the CIA wants to do and what the government wants to do, and it's like, well, that's very much leading us towards Secret Wars, because now I'm seeing people thinking that like one of the two of them may be Skrulls, or they may have been hidden in like the UN meeting, and so it's like, I don't know, it's just all this
possible. My viewpoint on all of that was much more towards the existence of mutants, right? Because the whole dynamic there was like, I know you know something. I need to know what it is. Like, why aren't you sharing this with me? Which is causing this uneasy, like, how do we deal with this? Like, how do we prepare for this from a government perspective? Because clearly you know that there's probably a whole nother nation out there that we don't know about, and what are they capable of, and what could they do to us? Because we're already trying to get vibranium for the Wakandans, and that's like a whole other thing we could talk about. But yeah, like, you know, I kind of was seeing this in terms of like, we're now in this world where like normal people, especially more on the government side, there's this known and unknown factor, which is really kind of what the mutants are about. Like, are you a mutant? Are you normal? Like, and it just frightens them, and they want to be in control of everything.
I also enjoyed this villain, Namor, a lot. We are 2 for 2 with nuanced villains in this franchise. In his case, he is just wanting to protect his people and his civilization. We also did get the little M word dropped there, where he says he's a mutant. Whenever we heard that in the theater, I immediately was like turning between my husband Mason and Luke, because we got to go see this movie together. Luke and I, my husband, and Luke's wife, Jackie. And they were both just kind of like, I know, I heard it too. So yet another little teeny tiny breadcrumb leading us to the introduction of mutants, and more specifically the X-Men in the MCU.
I had a mini theory pop up for myself that was, what if Valentina, I had to look up her name, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Contessa Valentina Allegra de. Yeah. What if, to introduce like the Weapon X program, if maybe she's in charge of that, as opposed to it being Stryker?
I could see that.
And she wants to collect all the vibranium and have all the vibranium because that's the strongest metal that they know of right now.
Right.
But then maybe they find, or a meteor or whatever, of adamantium, and then that's when they're like, oh, we have adamantium. Yeah. Or do you think that already exists?
See, it's tough to say, because it's like these moments in Wakanda Forever, it's like, they could have done the whole adamantium thing. Like, it didn't have to be like, well, the meteor split, and so there's vibranium over here, because we get to Talakan, and that's basically how they're powering everything, is through vibranium. And what's wild is, you know, they've got equally as impressive and cool technology and gear and weapons as the Wakandans do. So, like, I don't know, there could have been layers there. Like they could have mixed it up and made it more of like this setup leading into it that would have made a lot more sense. But yeah, like the whole thing with Val's character makes it feel like, yes, she could be kind of terrified of mutants or the thought of this, and she's the one that's going to run the show.
Mm-hmm. They're definitely setting something up with, and I know that like she's going to be the one in charge of the Thunderbolts. Right. We kind of know going forward that's part of her jam. So I just don't know if that's it or if they're trying to set up more with her. But again, it just goes back to like aside from Shuri dealing with trauma, this movie just seems to be set up, but for too many things. Like they're trying to set up too much, and so it just feels kind of scattered. But yeah, I think the design, the sound, everything overall in this film was great. So I in no way want anyone to think that I'm like, I didn't like it. I did really like it. I'm just looking at it from like a future of the universe standpoint, and it seems very much like the Black Widow movie, where like didn't really set up anything for the immediate future, set up a bunch of stuff for the like down the road future, but also had like I still don't know what the impact from this movie is going to be. Is this going to come up in Quantumania? Is this going to come up in future movies, or is this like like closing out the Wakanda chapter?
It's really harder. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say that, because like we get the mid-credit roll, and if you do stay till the very end, it does say Black Panther will return. So I think we're going to see a lot more of Wakanda. I just don't know in what way, especially with Namor and Talakhan. Like, I had a thought and I lost it. Yeah. Oh no, I know what it is. It was basically like, how do you answer questions to people that go see this and you're seeing the trailer for Quantumania right before, which you get screen time with Kang, but they never refer him as like, you don't know that he's Kang. So people are going to like, who is this person?
Right.
And then you watch Wakanda Forever and there's no reference to that other than the ticker. Like
which really doesn't have any reference other than Scott Lang as a book.
Yeah. And he's got a podcast that we still have not heard an episode of. Like, come on.
Which is crazy because, really quick side note, there are a ton of Marvel comics that have been converted into podcast form on Spotify. So if you're a comic fan, check them out. They're pretty fun. But there's also an entire series that is a Squirrel Girl podcast. And I think maybe we've talked about it before, but it's like they can do that, but they can't just make this Ant-Man podcast. Like,
yeah,
why not? We would all listen to it. We talk about it.
Yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be interesting once we get into. I don't know when they would start doing this. Like, probably closer to February. But like, what's Paul Rudd gonna do when doing his promotional run for this?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, he's probably going to do the same stuff he always does, but it'd be cool if he does something new.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Here's to the Ant-Man podcast.
But yeah, I know we're kind of bouncing all over the place. I really liked the intro, the courtroom moment. That's probably like my favorite moment of the whole film. It's just showing you the power that the Queen has and just the awareness and seeing like these like her bodyguards, and they look so cool. And it's just that whole moment was awesome. I wish we got more of that.
I also want to know, like, how, like, as someone who tried to learn a second language, I want to know how many languages they know.
Right?
Because Okoye busts in with her French, and it was really cool too. The subtitle effect that they did, where if it was normal subtitles, it was in white. If it was Wakanda, it was orange. No, blue, right? And then Atlantean was orange, I think.
Yeah, they mixed it up. I can't remember the colors, but yeah, it was different for,
I thought that,
for
yeah,
that.
that was really cool.
It was like the Mayan language.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how did they pick up on some of that so quickly? Like,
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I guess we don't know.
I liked the translator that they used because it worked both ways, even though in one way they muddled the sound so you could kind of hear it, but not really.
Yeah, and maybe that's like, maybe that's it, right? Like, it's just some future vibranium tech that they have.
But that also, so another big part of this is AI, right? Because Griot, right?
I think so, yeah.
Griot, who's voiced by Trevor Noah, I didn't know that, has a big part in this. But it also seems like they have an AI, like the Telecon has an AI as well, potentially, or something. They've got tech that they can talk to, and it will do stuff like the whole voiceover thing. But for more context, in West African culture, a griot is a poet, musician, or a storyteller who is tasked with keeping tradition alive, which is really fascinating. But I love the whole AI stuff. Like, I'm like, man, I wish we need like for the dev geeks out there, we need like an SDK so we can just all make our own AI. I want to make an AI so bad.
I've been learning how to code, and that was one of the things early on that I found, like just a little code that you could throw together to make an AI. And I tried it, and immediately my computer was like, no, your computer's going to crash if you try to run this code. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I like the AI too. I think that it's fun to get to see like what sort of AI tech other groups have in the MCU. I will say it really makes me think of all the nanotech stuff. It's just it's like a convenient way for them to just explain away like months of work that someone would have to do. Instead, they're like, oh, we have an AI that just like creates this or does this.
Yeah.
It's like,
and that's the whole like thing with it. It's basically recreating the heart-shaped herb, which is, it's just basically diving into like 3D printing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which also like it's a comic book, I get it, but like doesn't make sense. It just seems very like, well, if you could 3D print this herb, why aren't you doing that before?
Yeah, like right when it was all burned, like how the question is how long have they been working on that?
Right. Well, apparently not long enough because they didn't have anything to work on. So
yeah.
I think it's cool. I think I will say that there's a moment when Shuri mentions that like not to worry about AI because it does whatever she wants it to do. It's like Ultron already happened. He was AI that decided he didn't want to do what he was told to do and did his own thing. Right. So I don't know. It feels like disconnected in some way from like previous movies to just be like, no, there's nothing to worry about. AI won't ever turn on you. It's like, but it already has turned on you. So it just seems like a setup for like Return of Ultron or something.
Right. It's like, who's the right villain to show up and make this stuff happen?
Which I was trying to think, like, what
This
other...
is something like Doctor Doom would do. Like he would just try to take over all the AI and...
I don't think so, though, because like his
know.
whole thing is that he like controls his Doombots and just shoots laser beams and stuff. Like, I don't know. I feel like, because that's what I was trying to do, is think of like what villain could this be potentially leading to, but Ultron was kind of like the villain that it would have led to. Maybe something with like MODOK and AIM, but
yeah,
even then it feels like they could introduce that in a better way.
Yeah. The real thing is like, what's the end? At least in the end of this movie, what is Namor's thought process here? Like it's hard to really. It was hard for me to kind of reverse engineer, like when he has that last moment of like, there will be a point where they're going to need us and they're going to come for us, and it's like, well, are you trying to say like, are you going to help Wakanda, or are you going to be like, nope,
right?
Like I just want to sit back now and watch the point when y'all are burning, and then just let you burn. Also, can he regrow his wings?
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I would assume so, because that's like one of his like key features.
Yeah.
I'm
wondering if that's ever happened to him before.
It'll be explained away in some way, but I do feel like, and this goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, the way that we leave Namor and that whole storyline is essentially like where we started. Like he's not a villain, he's not a hero, he's living in his own place, wanting to do his own thing. Potentially he'll help, but maybe not. And so it was like, so that was, I don't know. It goes back to like, I get that all of this, like the main purpose was showing Shuri go through the grieving process, I guess, in like a superhero world. But the whole story with Namor feels like it didn't mean anything because it ended and nothing really happened. So it's an odd way to like introduce a character and then immediately just like put them on the back burner for if we need him again. Now we're like, oh, Namor's there.
Yeah, it's it's almost like they only, I mean, it's like Namor was used to let the non-Disney Plus subscriber viewers know that mutants are here. There's a whole nother world under the water here. So now you've got that. And yeah, like, I mean, that's kind of like the core two things. And it's kind of like layered into that is like, they've done a great job at keeping themselves hidden, which we can get into. We haven't even talked about Riri yet much, but it's fascinating how well they've been keeping themselves hidden, because like the government has zero clue,
right?
But now they know,
right?
So like, what's that impact? Like, that's what I'm more curious on, like what that impact's going to be.
I feel like,
because it's really one of these things of like opening it up to this world of like someone else is sitting back and this is what's going to intrigue them, and they're going to want to go find Namor and build that bond. Right. And like the question is who's that going to be? Is that how they're going to bring Dr. Doom in? Is it someone else?
It's interesting because it's essentially what the world just went through with Wakanda. Like, if we think about the timeline, right? This is probably like, what, 7 years after Endgame? So probably like 8 years after Black Panther, which like Wakanda came out to the world basically for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, the world has already been through this once and is now going through it again, except in a completely different way, because like Wakanda came out and was like, we're here to help people. We want to like spread our technology and our knowledge to the world. Mm-hmm. Whereas Namor's like, no, like, you guys know we're here, but only because we came up and we wanted to destroy you, but we decided against it. So
yeah,
it's like, oh, I don't know that anyone's going to want to go down there and try to work with him.
Someone will.
But yeah,
there's going to be someone. Like, it's like, it's the opposite, right? If we can't build anything on the moon, then let's build something at the bottom depths of the ocean.
Right. Which, like, I feel like he's not going to like that either. So
yeah.
I feel like that's the issue with Namor, is he's just sort of there for himself and his own people and wants little to nothing to do with anyone else. So
yeah,
I don't know. Well, I don't know if this is leading to like our own not Illuminati, what's it called? Our own like group of super smart people here to protect the world. I can't think of what it's called. In Doctor Strange.
Talking about the Illuminati?
Yeah. It is the Illuminati, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was right.
No.
Because Namor's in the comics, so...
Oh, really?
I don't know if, like, that's why...
And that does make sense, because, like, I can't think of, like, you know... Is there any other civilizations under the water outside of them? And really within the Marvel... That's kind of like their thing, right?
Well... And this is a little bit of like a...
Or at least on Earth, right?
Yeah, this is a little bit of like a reimagining of it too, because I'm pretty sure in the comics Namor is in charge of Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is more of like a Mayan underworld, underwater. So I don't know if like Atlantis is also a thing separately from
Unless
this.
They want to introduce that.
It like wouldn't make sense, because Namor is supposed to be the king of Atlantis, and
yeah,
so it's like, okay, how is he king of both? I don't know.
I mean, before we kind of talk thoughts on like Riri, I did find what the other CNN ticker was referencing, and it's something to do with New Asgard.
Oh yeah, okay,
but I can't really. I don't know in what way it is.
Right,
and it could have just been, like New Asgard is basically like a touristy place now, so it could have just been something like that, but that, no, that's a good thought. It's like Atlantis could be there, just not just maybe they're gonna push it to be this they discover it, and
I just don't know who they would tie to that.
Yeah, I don't either,
because like I know that like Namor was part of that push when they were doing a lot of like Greek gods being added to stuff. So like we have Zeus and Hercules, and there's one other hero from that realm as well. And then Namor kind of like popped up around that time, I believe. So to already have shown us the Olympians, right? And they're up in their super world in the clouds. And already shown us Namor, who is now in a completely different place. It would be weird to introduce Atlantis because you don't have anyone to like tie it to, and there would be no real reason to go there.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I would say let us know on social, or like where. Who would they fight if we had Atlantis? Let us know who you think they would fight.
Submariner. Oh, that's DC, isn't it?
Well, I don't know, and I've seen promo images of basically like give Namor his own film, and that's what it was called. It was Namor the Submariner.
I want to. Maybe it is Marvel. It's a hero. Oh, it's just Namor. Namor is the Submariner.
Yeah.
submariner, however you want to say it.
Yeah, however you want to say it. So what do you think? What did you think of Riri, Ironheart?
I thought completely unneeded, unnecessary. I think fun, but again, it just seems like setup for future for Ironheart. I don't know that it needed to be. I don't know that that was needed because we didn't really get any sort of origin story. Right. So whenever Ironheart comes out, they're either going to have to start pre this movie or post this movie, but then do a bunch of previously on. So
I can see them going that direction. As they could start it with her leaving Wakanda, going back, and then just be like, so you probably don't know who I am, let me catch you up, and kind of building that story. But I don't know, it's like some of the things, like we get the whole moment of like building the new suit, and we see that like the heart's cut out. Never once saw it in the suit.
Nope. Well, and the suit for me was problematic, I guess, because she builds this new suit, gets to use it for the battle, and then it gets taken away from her, and she gets sent back with nothing. What was the point?
Well, not necessarily nothing.
Well, true. Okay. But she doesn't get to take the suit. So it's sort of like my issue with Namor's story, where again, even though it was a very condensed story, it seems like this was literally just to introduce her so that everyone has an idea of who she is, and then they can start fresh in the series and reintroduce her, because they took her from, I would say like 2, because she was already working on her own suit. They took her from like 2 to 10 back to 1. Like,
it's like
pointless.
Because it's almost like, just imagine the frustration she's going to go through. Is like, it's kind of like, doing a Spider-Man in a way. Like, I got to go to make my own suit now, or just work on the other one. But she's going from like Wakanda technology back to just like what she was using, like
to like a Home Depot technology. Like I don't know. It didn't make sense, especially because like we've learned that Wakanda has like outreach programs and stuff. Wouldn't it make more sense for them to like keep Riri around and like continue her education there, and she could help them build stuff in Wakanda? Like it just unneeded, unnecessary. It wasn't like a bad part of the movie or anything. It just didn't need to be in the movie.
Easy, like it was just an easy way to like connect the two worlds together. So, I don't know. Yeah, I'm torn on it, and it's kind of like we've talked about this, like in Black Panther. There's such this, you can tell like there's a lot of inspiration from like anime and some Japanese things, and most of what we get in Wakanda Forever is basically from like to me it was like the Midnight Angels suits, and then Ironheart's new suit,
which then gets taken away, so we'll probably never see it again.
Yeah, good, possibly. Yeah, until it's like Secret Wars or something.
Armor Wars, maybe.
Armor Wars, yeah, could be there. Or she's gonna have to go like recreate that. But also there was like no, it's like Shuri was asking, is that Stark tech, and it got cut off. So like, is there any inspiration from Stark? That it seems like they wanted to go more of this family route of like, she does all this because of her father, and like all of that is fine. That's perfectly fine. But isn't in the comics it's all because of like Tony? Yeah,
and I mean she's at MIT. We assume through the like Stark program that he set up. So like we could assume that maybe when he was still alive, he like saw something in her and gave her rudimentary designs for a suit, and she was working on it, but he's passed away before she was able to finish it, and so she's like still working on it. there's something there that could work, as convenient as it seems. But I don't know. Again, I think that when we talked about this previously, we mentioned like, oh, it'd be cool if instead of it being Stark Tech and all this stuff, instead she was a student that like went to Wakanda for study abroad and met Shuri, and Shuri brought her in and she started working on stuff and was working on like a weaponized suit or something like that. I think that would have been a much more exciting and fresher take on the character, because I know that Ironheart is still a relatively new character in the sense of like the history of Marvel, but realistically Ironheart is new Iron Man. So it's just like a rework of a character we've already had. So I think that they could have taken that and made it into like a cool, fresh new take on that character, sort of like they did for Namor. But instead they were like, no, we'll cherry pick parts of that origin story and show them to you now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like seeing Iron Man all over again.
Yeah, so
and
they even use the same sound effects and stuff. So I don't know. I'm excited for the series. I think it'll be cool, but I'm definitely more nervous now because I feel like it's going to be either super heavy on backstory because we didn't really get any of that, or it's going to like constantly call back to the fact that she was in Wakanda and fought in Wakanda and worked in Wakanda and is now having to build a new suit.
Yeah. And who's going to be the quote unquote villain? Like I could see it being potentially DeFontaine trying to like recruit her, or like running from the government because they want to know like what happened.
Yeah, unless they give us some... I would assume that series is going to be a setup for Armor Wars, so maybe they give us like Crimson whatever. What is that guy called? He's like the Russian Iron Man. Maybe they give us like something like that as like a villain that pops up, so then we're like leading into Armor Wars and everyone's going to get a cool suit of armor and who's going to have what and control what, and I don't know, maybe that's where we're going. Again, I feel like the downside to this movie was that it set up too many things too far out.
Yeah.
With no real payoff in the end.
Right. Who do you think would challenge M'Baku for the throne?
Shuri would be the only one that would make sense, but I don't know that she wants that.
I don't think she wants that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe Okoye's husband.
Maybe
we didn't see him, but they did make mention of the fact that she could visit him. So
yeah, he's probably in prison somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he could challenge.
I mean, I don't know the rules, so
I think that's what muddies things is. I think a lot of people are expecting like, well, if you're Black Panther, then that automatically makes you the overall leader, but not necessarily. Black Panther is the protector, right?
Yeah. It just happens to be.
T'Challa just happened to, be king already, and he could have said, you know what, I'll be your protector, but I need someone else to kind of run things here.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with M'Baku. Just let him
But also, it's like, how do the elders feel about that? Maybe the elders step in and say, like, no, we would much rather have, if someone's going to challenge you, it needs to be Shuri, because we would rather have them to be the same person.
Maybe, but I feel like their whole culture is kind of set up in a way that's like anyone could challenge, right? Like,
right.
That was the thing. Like, anyone could challenge. So I think they'll probably just be like, yeah, I mean, if he challenges and he wins, then he's the new leader. And like that, I guess at the time, like if we think about the last time this happened, that meant that you got to then take the heart-shaped herb and get the powers of the Black Panther. So like maybe he like gets to take that. If he's in charge, he gets to eat a heart-shaped herb and get the power, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be the Black Panther. Like
this is creeping into like Star Wars and the rule of two. So much like how many, like, can there be multiple Black Panthers? Is only always going to be one protector? It seems like there's always just going to be one. They'll only have one person wield that kind of power,
right? Well, and
otherwise, if everyone did, like, who knows what would happen,
right? And they make it seem like not everyone can, so
possibly,
I don't know like how that plays in.
It's like, like what if they let Riri take a drink and
yeah, right? Like just like, could you die if you couldn't like handle, like, I don't know, but
this kind of goes into, essentially our answer is like what happened with like Namor, like it's like almost like this is how mutants started versus like the Terrigen Mist, right? Like, or there's going to be multiple ways that mutants are created.
And maybe that is the direction this goes. Like, instead of Terrigen Mist, like somebody steals,
people are going to steal
formula and turn it into a mist, and then they're able to like gas people with the heart-shaped herb, and that's what turns you into a mutant. Maybe.
Who knows?
I will say something interesting. We go to the ancestral plane a couple times, and I saw a theory that, like, I kind of like, when T'Challa goes to the ancestral plane and sees his father with all the other ancestors in this tree. And basically he's like, yeah, whenever you die, like, you join the other Black Panthers from before you and in the ancestral plane. Like, that's what happens. When Killmonger takes it and he goes to the ancestral plane, it's the moment that his father died. And that's what he sees. And when Riri takes it, she's in the throne room and she sees Killmonger on the throne. Yeah, Shuri, sorry. I was so focused. Sees Killmonger on the throne, but no one else is there. It's completely empty. And I saw a theory that Killmonger is stuck in this, like, it's the ancestral plane, but he's stuck in a part of it that's like his desire was to rule the kingdom. So he got what he desired. He's ruling the kingdom, but there's no one in the kingdom. And he's stuck there by himself for like all eternity.
That's interesting. So he's ruling the kingdom, but there's no one to rule.
Exactly. And so I was like, what a cool thought of like, yeah, because like he took the heart-shaped herb. You would think that based on the knowledge that we have of that, if he dies and goes to the ancestral plane, he would be there with all of them, right, in the tree. But instead, because he was so like power hungry and went about it the wrong way, he didn't get access to heaven, if you will, of the ancestral plane. Instead, he's in this like self-made hell for eternity where he just rules over this empty kingdom.
I like that because it does make sense, because, you know, Shuri's on this big kick of like so much bad things have happened, and it's just and then layering in with like the world trying to get a hold of vibranium, and just things going on that she basically said like, I would much rather watch the world burn. That's just the state of mind that she's in and can't get out of that. So yeah, that makes sense. Like,
and it's just kind of like a warning to her, like, hey, if you don't do this the right way, this is like what's going to happen. You're going to end up in the worst possible place. So I don't know. I thought that was cool. I guess looking forward, we can talk about the end credits stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing to talk about would be just if you had any quick thoughts on just them killing off the queen.
Not really, because again, like, it seems like the whole story was to push Shuri forward.
Yeah, it was like really the only thing it was, and I read an interesting behind the scenes of like that, she approached Ryan about that, like wasn't really happy with it. And he was like, you got to remember, like, put yourself in this world. Like, death is not the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's more to that. And
Right.
That's kind of like the thing. It's like that moment where what would have happened if Shuri had just killed Namor?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of position would that have put her in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what would that, I mean, essentially, like, could that have caused like a major world war, or could something else have happened?
I mean, it definitely would have caused like a war between Wakanda and what's it called?
Telecon,
yeah. I think, yeah, definitely. I don't know that, like, I think the outcome of that would have affected the world, maybe, but I think more so it was just that, like, it was that pull for Shuri. Like, do you succumb to the darkness, or do you rise above? And there's a lot of like symbolism in this movie too, of like, descending onto the throne rather than rising up to the throne. And so I think that it was just all centered around, what is Shuri going to do? How is she handling this? What's the next step for Shuri? As opposed to like, what's the next step for Wakanda?
Yeah.
Because like, again, like, we don't know what the next step for Wakanda is.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't
exactly. Yeah. It's what are you holding on to? What do you need to let go? Because I mean, you should always remember those that you love and lost, but you still have to move forward. And I think that's the big thing with Shuri, is like, how does she move forward?
Right. Which I guess we will find out.
Yeah. So the final question goes into like the mid-credit scene.
I was pretty sure that they were going to do this, so I was delighted with the mid-credit scene where it introduced us to T'Challa's son. His Haitian name, I believe, was Toussaint, but his given name is T'Challa. And again, I had a feeling that they were going to introduce a child belonging to T'Challa and Nakia. Now, does it make a single lick of sense that they would hide baby T'Challa from Wakanda? Not really, no. But it made for a really lovely moment at the end of the film, where we don't only see the franchise carrying on the legacy of T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman, we also have this new character that is set up to do the same. So, very excited to see where they will go from here. Again, it was a very emotional and interesting, a very, very action-packed entry into the MCU, and one of my favorites from this year.
I liked it, and this was like, I think in the back of my mind, I expected something like this to happen. And, it makes sense that it does, but T'Challa has a son. But the question is could he be a mutant?
I don't know. In the comics, T'Challa has a son with Storm.
Yeah.
So, potentially, but we know that Storm is not a character, so yet. So that's not, that couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But
the question is,
I think setting up the universe with a new T'Challa, because that's the child's name.
Yeah.
I think that they are trying to future-proof Black Panther.
Yeah.
So that when they introduce mutants, they could introduce a lot of these mutants as kids, as opposed to introducing them as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And then T'Challa, new T'Challa, would potentially like grow up to be Black Panther, King of Wakanda, and meet Storm along the way, and then we could get that Black Panther Storm, T'Challa Storm story.
I didn't think of that. They could do that. Yeah,
that was what immediately hit me. I was like, oh, they're trying to reintroduce Black Panther in a way that they could use T'Challa Black Panther at some point down the line.
Yeah,
even though T'Challa Black Panther that we know is no longer a character with us. So I don't know, kind of weird, but also like fine. I think it just depends on how they introduce mutants.
Yeah.
If they introduce them and are like, they've been here all along, and Xavier's school has been around for years and years, and it was like I said, where it was like Xavier has passed away at this point, and now it's the Jean Grey school, and like there's so many things that they could do. But if they were to introduce them from like an earlier stage, then that storyline could still play out in the next 15-20 years of Marvel films.
Yeah,
which like crazy to think, but like there's no stopping this train now. Like they're gonna make these movies probably for the rest of our lives, so there's time to do stuff.
Yep, that is true.
Well,
I feel like that's it. We've covered Wakanda Forever.
That's pretty much it. The only other thing I will say is there's a lot of stuff out there right now about how Doctor Doom was supposed to be in this movie and that he was taken out of this movie, and that people saw like a cut where the final credit scene introduces Doctor Doom and all this stuff. Don't believe any of that. If he was supposed to be in this movie, fine. They took him out, whatever. But like, there's no secret cut out there of Doctor Doom. I think there's.
I guess the only thing I saw was that someone said that there is a director's cut, and that's all they really said. I mean, that could mean anything.
Yeah, I could see there being a director's cut. There's definitely no Doctor Doom in it. I saw a thing that was somebody is like filming the end credits in the movie theater, and it ends, and it's like Black Panther will return, and then it cuts to this scene that I'm like 90% sure is in it was like the teaser for Doctor Doom in when they like remade the Fantastic Four movie, because it's like a shot where they're like walking through some halls and you see like a suit of armor, and then it turns the corner and there's just like an iron mask, and then the eyes open up and everyone cheered, and I was like, this is not real. This is nothing. This is nonsense. So
little side note. I started watching that one again.
I have too.
I've only watched it once, and then it kept popping up, and I was like, why not? Let's revisit. I haven't finished it. I think I still have like an hour left.
I'm excited for us to watch it and talk about it, because a little preview into whenever we do that. I really enjoyed the first 30 minutes of that movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was like perfect way to set up, and then something happened and the movie just tanked for the rest of it. Like
I'm at the point where they just got back, and so they're all like, they just like the powers are there, but I don't think they've like all connected yet to talk about it. So I've got like, I think like 50 minutes to an hour left on it, so I may try to go finish it this afternoon, or I don't know.
We'll have to talk about that soon. Yeah.
And most of it's just because like I only watched it once, and I couldn't really remember how how big of a role Doctor Doom had in that one, and I completely forgot a lot of the people starring in it, because like I forgot the actor that was playing Doctor Doom, because I'm a big fan of him in Servant on Apple TV. So anyway, I know we're breaking away from but anyway,
we'll get
Doctor
him.
Doom.
We'll get him soon.
I think we'll get him. I do agree. I do see a lot of fans really breaking down Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and just the style, and especially with what Ryan Coogler has done with these films and some of these characters. And I would agree. I would love to see his take on Doctor Doom, whether that be just a solo, if they want to do a solo film to bring in this character, or like, I don't know what their plans are, but I'm excited for it. And I think it would be cool to have Ryan Coogler take on that role. Yeah.
I feel like we're going to get it sooner than later, but it was not in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going into Secret Wars, like Kang and Doom have pretty big roles in that. So, yeah.
And I feel like we're at a point now where they've introduced Kang, not in the MCU, so to speak, but they've introduced Kang. So we're just waiting for them to introduce Doom. And if Quantumania goes the way that I think it's going to go, where Kang is the villain, not villain. Like maybe it's more of like a setup to him being the villain movie as opposed to him being the villain throughout. I think that would leave room for them to introduce Doom in a similar fashion, where like they introduce Doom as like he's the new leader of Latveria, and maybe he's not so great, but no one's really sure yet. And then they could introduce Fantastic Four, because those kind of go hand in hand.
I'm banking. We're going to see Reed Richards, and he's going to show up, and Ant-Man's going to be, it's probably going to be like Ant-Man and his crew, like, and Doom will get referenced in some way. And then before the screen cuts in the background, we'll see like the figures of the rest of Fantastic Four. We may not see the cast, but I think we'll see the figures of them, and then it just cuts to black.
Do you think that will be like an end credit scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, and I'm so excited. Like Phase 5 is going to kick off like right before my birthday. So that's like the best birthday present, because I think Quantumania comes out the 17th. My birthday's on the 20th. So nice. Like when I see the date, I just looked at my wife and I was like, birthday, right, let's go.
Yeah, well, hopefully by then we'll have like super early screenings or something. Disney.
Man, that'd be great.
Disney, Marvel, one of you, please contact us. So all in all, go check it out if you need something to watch. And just a reminder, we do not have an episode next week. I'll be sure to post on social media when we're coming back from our break, our hiatus, whatever you want to call it, as we wait for the next. Oh, go ahead.
But go ahead and watch, because the holiday special comes out next week. So we'll definitely be watching that. We won't talk about it until the next week.
Yes. So keep your ears out for that the following week, and keep your eyes out for that next week. But yeah, we won't be posting our watch through next week like we normally would. So everyone enjoy your Thanksgiving, Turkey Day, Thursday off, whatever it is to you. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Be a good break. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
See you later.
Gobble, gobble, gobble.